You're listening to Protecting What Matters, a podcast by the Ohio Department of Commerce. Commerce is Ohio's chief regulator, and we play a vital role in keeping you safe by protecting your property, your money, and some of the products you use every day. This podcast is designed to bring awareness to important issues and help educate consumers and businesses. Join us as we chat with trusted industry experts focused on providing you with the tools you need to help you protect what matters most in your life.
Corn stalks, dried flowers, any of those crepe paper type things that we like to use to be able to make the decorations and the spooky decorations. They all can be flammable and they can catch fire easily. Thanksgiving Day alone, there are already about 1,400 cooking fires reported, and that's all across the United States. More than 3 times what we have on an average in any given day. When you have any of your lights that are worn or broken cords, loose bulbs, anything like that,
good.
Make sure you're replacing those strings of lights. Frayed wiring is bad. It's exposed, and it's something that could potentially cause some friction and be a heat source, as we're talking about before, about how many fires happen.
Hello, welcome to Protecting What Matters. I'm Andy Ellinger with the Ohio Department of Commerce Division of State Fire Marshal, and joining me today is Ken Clauda, the Fire Prevention Bureau Chief. Hey Ken, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing great. Well Ken, I guess it's fall now, and that means 3 big holidays are just around the corner. Halloween, Thanksgiving, and the Christmas and other holiday season. And with them comes some associated fire risks. First, let's talk about Halloween. It's a fun, spooky time of the year. Let's make it safer this season with a few easy safety tips. I hear decorations are the first things to ignite in roughly 800 reported home fires each year, with more than 1/3 of those started by a candle.
So candles they're decorative. Everybody loves them.
Yes.
They love how they look. Sometimes they smell wonderful. Depends on what kind of candle you have. But you're right, they're dangerous. And the reason why I say that they're dangerous is that you've got pets, you've got kids. If you're not paying attention to them, they could all burn down and get to the point of being able to get knocked over easily and potentially cause a fire.
So what's the alternative? If you love candles and you love the light that they give off, what can you do?
So we are lucky. We live in a wonderful modern age right now. In all seriousness, we do have the ability to have these little tea lights that are battery operated. You'll be able to turn those on. There's some of them now that have timers, so they're on for a certain amount of time, then they go off, and then back on again whenever the mood hits you. And those are important things to make sure you can use not only inside, but specifically when we're talking about Halloween, hey, jack-o'-lanterns. People love to use jack-o'-lanterns. So definitely would put those in a jack-o'-lantern instead of using candles.
Now, some of the associated decorations with Halloween are also highly flammable, like
Corn stalks.
corn stalks. What else? What else do you have to be wary of? You can still use them, but you have to be wary of them that they could be highly flammable.
Yeah, so corn stalks, dried flowers, any of those crepe paper type things that we like to use to be able to make the decorations and the spooky decorations. They all can be flammable and they can catch fire easily. So make sure you're keeping those decorations away from anything that does burn. Any open flames, any other heat sources, lighters, heaters, those kind of things. Keep them away from there.
Now, as your children are going out trick-or-treating to get the candy, they may be in other people's homes. They need to know some things.
Yeah. So when they go out, make sure you got your kids have flashlights, because we are going, especially in Ohio, pretty much every time we do this time of year, it's going to be cold and potentially rainy and dark, and we want to make sure that the kids are kept safe. So make sure they have flashlights on hand, glow sticks, something like that, to be able to keep their costumes visible when they're walking around. And then make sure, I would be remiss to not say, make sure that they wind up staying on sidewalks. If they're going to cross streets, make sure there's somebody with them, make sure they're paying attention to where things are going, because again, all these costumes are nice and dark, and sometimes they're not visible. If they're going to a Halloween party and they're heading out and they're going to go do things, make sure you talk to them. Make sure they know different ways out of the home, so that if something were to happen, fire or or any kind of emergency, they know they can get out and talk to them about that, because it's just important it's your own home.
Do we still teach stop, drop, and roll? Is that still an important skill for young children to know?
So stop, drop, and roll is important, but it's not as important as making sure, knowing what to do if something were to happen besides having your clothes catch on fire, right? Yes, it's important to know stop, drop, and roll if your clothes catch on fire, but fortunately that doesn't happen much. But the other things that we talk about pretty regularly about having the 2 ways out, knowing what to do when the smoke alarm sounds, those are very important things too.
Yeah, is there any other Halloween tips we know specific to Halloween?
So again, keeping your kids away from jack-o'-lanterns, making sure that they stay away from open flames. And hey, we're going to talk about smoke alarms, I think, a few times, but make sure that you do have working smoke alarms in your home and you test them regularly.
Yeah, very critical, and we might touch on that again.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, Thanksgiving, my favorite holiday, is actually the #1 day of the year for cooking fires.
Yes, indeed.
What can we do to prevent that and get that number down?
So whenever you cook, no matter what time of the year it is, stay in the kitchen with what you're cooking. Make sure you're always there keeping an eye on it. Whether it's in the oven or the stove, you're paying attention to what's going on and what's happening in your kitchen.
Let's see, looks like we've got some numbers here. Do you want to go over some of these, touch on some of these, just how prevalent cooking fires are?
Sure. So when we're talking about cooking, NFPA has statistics out there. Thanksgiving Day alone, there are already about 1,400 cooking fires reported, and that's all across the United States. More than 3 times what we have on an average in any given day. That's a crazy number there. It really is pretty wild.
So that's why it's so important that we talk about this, because everybody's cooking, and maybe people that aren't used to cooking so many things at once or for such a large group, and that's where I guess accidents can happen. Are there any other cooking tips we should talk about that's going to keep those numbers down?
Well, just like we talk about with general cooking, but it's important too because, like you said, there's so many things going on, is keeping children away from the places that you're cooking. Keep them at least 3 feet away from your stove, your oven, whatever the case may be. You know, in all honesty, it's best to just, on this holiday alone, make sure you just keep them out of the kitchen. Make sure you got things for them to do. There's games that you can do with them. There's puzzles. There's different books on the holidays that they can be a part of. But that way they're staying out of the kitchen and you're making sure that that's a safe, kid-free zone.
Yeah, and like we talked about some of the flammable decorations, we have paper towels, a lot of paper towels, a lot of napkins. Keep those out of the way.
Yes.
Now, specific to Thanksgiving, we have turkeys and people using these deep fryers.
Yes.
We have specific tips around those.
So those are really good. I love a deep fried.
Do you?
Deep fried
Do you?
turkey's really tasty.
Okay.
But if you're going to deep fry a turkey, make sure you're not doing it anywhere near your house. Make sure you're staying far, far away. Do not use a frozen turkey. That would be bad. And before you even put the turkey into the oil, what you can do is you can put out the amount of water you're going to use, or sorry, the amount of oil you're going to use by filling your pot that you're going to do the deep frying in with water, putting that turkey in, and making sure that that doesn't get to the point where over it flows. So then when you do put the oil in and it gets hot, you put that turkey in, you know you're not going to be bubbling over.
You know
and having
exactly the
that
amount
going.
it's going to take.
Yeah, you know
that's
exactly
brilliant.
what it is.
Yeah. Now, fire extinguishers, we had a conversation before about I didn't have my fire extinguishers in the right place.
Yes.
Where should they be?
Well, when we're talking about something outside, since we're talking about the deep frying, because you know we're going to be going there, have it nearby, a couple feet away, 5-10 feet away from wherever you're deep frying. That way, if something happens, you can use your extinguisher. But again, make sure it's something that's going to be used for boiling liquid, and not an A or a C extinguisher, but something that has that it says ABC or even just a B extinguisher for that. Inside the kitchen, make sure you're having it placed somewhere that is on the way out of the kitchen. You don't want to sit there and have to cross over in front of the thing that's burning to get to your extinguisher. So it's best to keep it on the way out of your kitchen when you're using that, or if you need to use it.
Anything else that is Thanksgiving specific that we should touch on as far as safety tips?
I think we hit it for the most part. But again, like I said, we're going to keep talking about these smoke alarms.
Yeah.
Make sure your smoke alarms are working. Test them by pushing that test button. That should be done about once a month. And we'll continue talking about smoke alarms as we move forward.
Well, let's talk about Christmas and the holiday season. there are things around trees and decorations and lots of different ways that things can go wrong on this beautiful time of year. Let's go over some of those.
So we'll talk about decorating up right off the bat. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Again, with candles, because people like to use candles, the ambiance is there. That's awesome. But make sure whenever you have your lit candles, you're keeping them away from any decorations and anything else, basically. Make sure that they're in a container that doesn't cause an issue and can burn.
What about Christmas trees specifically? When it's time to take them out, don't wait, don't mess
Right.
around. Yeah.
Don't mess around with that one. So with trees, we'll start with before you even bring it into your house. As you're checking it when you're out, and if you are not going to go cut your own tree down and you're getting it from a place where it sells the Christmas trees, check the needles on there. Make sure when you run your hand over it, they don't start falling off. Make sure they're all green still and not brown. And then when you do bring it home, you're cutting off a couple inches from the base before you put it into that stand. It's also important to make sure you keep them watered. Try to water them daily. And then, as you talked about when you're taking them out, don't wait. Once they start drying out, take them out and take and get rid of your tree and dispose of it properly. Some places even do a recycling where they'll make it mulch. So talk to your local officials there on whether that's going to be something they'll do.
Every year at Christmas, I drag out the extension cord that plugs into an extension cord that's tied to another extension cord to get all these lights running. It's probably not the best practice.
So we should make sure the fire department knows where you live, is what you're saying.
They're on call, yeah.
No, that's not the best practice on that one. When you have this and you have your strings of lights, make sure that you're using the ones for the proper use. You're only going to put so many of those lights in a row according to whatever the manufacturer says for how many strands of lights you should be using. And again, we want to make sure we're plugging everything directly into a wall outlet as much as we can. Understand that every now and again it may not work, but with this and anything else, if you're going to be using the lights during the holiday season, you make sure you unplug them when you're leaving the room or going to bed at night, especially the ones on the tree. If you have a live Christmas tree, you're going to cause it to dry out more, potentially cause a fire, and if it happens at night, no one's going to know about it until it's potentially too late.
Now you've trained your family to do that. Your young son actually turns the lights on at night before he goes to bed.
He turns them off at night before he goes to bed. Yeah. So we've been doing that since he was little. It's funny because now in the day and age of smart devices, we have a couple smart outlets. So even if he forgets, those go off at 11 o'clock at night no matter what. They'll just shut off, which is nice. So it's a good thing about the technology age we live in. But the other thing is when we leave the room, we make sure we tell we have an Amazon. We have the Alexa devices there. We say, hey, turn off the Christmas tree, and it'll shut it off. But before he was little and couldn't do that, we had foot switches, so he could shut it off.
Ah, that's brilliant.
We had foot switch.
Oh, brilliant. I like the idea of plugging it into a smart outlet and then turning it off and then turning it back on.
Yep.
Because you never know what's going to happen, and if it happens while you're asleep, it's more dangerous.
Correct, exactly. Yeah. But like we said before, the amount of fires that happen that we're talking about, 1/3 of the home decoration fires are started by candles. So those are things that we can't have a smart device for yet.
Those candles have reared their ugly head again during the holiday season.
Their candles are back. And then every 2 out of 5 decoration fires happen because they are placed too close to something like a heat source. In this case, we were talking about candles. That's one of them, or heaters, or space heaters, those kind of things. Yeah.
Is there anything else that's that holiday season, that Christmas holiday season related that we should be noting?
So when you have any of your lights that are worn or broken cords, loose bulbs, anything like that,
good.
Make sure you're replacing those strings of lights. Frayed wiring is bad. It's exposed, and it's something that could potentially cause some friction and be a heat source, as we're talking about before, about how many fires happen. So, and like I said before, read your manufacturer's notes on how many strands of lights you can have together.
Now, we've touched on escape plans a little and smoke alarms a little. Let's expand a little bit on that. Smoke alarm best practice. Mm-hmm. We've hammered it home each and every holiday, really year round.
Yes.
What's a good rule for smoke alarms?
So year round is to make sure you're testing those smoke alarms monthly. If you have a smoke alarm that needs batteries replaced, we like to say take and replace those twice a year. We do it when the clock changes because it's just easy to remember because we all have to do it. The other thing too is to make sure you're telling your guest about your escape plan. If something were to happen, they know what to do because we have family come over that may not be with us regularly. They may stay with us for the holidays, and they need to know what to do to be able to get out and stay safe themselves. The other part about smoke alarms is to make sure if you check your smoke alarm, check when it was made. If it's older than 10 years, we got to replace the entire alarm because they're no longer as sensitive to being able to detect those fires that we have
So
on a
really,
daily basis.
at this point, we should check for 2013 manufacture date
Yeah,
and get those replaced
exactly.
just to be safe.
Just to be safe. Just to be safe.
And then how many do we need in a house?
So the recommendation is in each bedroom, so wherever you sleep, put a smoke alarm. Outside of where people sleep, put a smoke alarm, and on each level of your house. That is the standard of practice that we have across the entire United States, actually North America in general.
Now, these holiday fires that occur still pale in comparison to smoking-related fatalities. Smoking-related fatalities are still number one. So if you have guests in your home, family and friends that smoke, we just need to be aware that there's dangers that are associated with that.
Right. So if you do have family, friends that smoke, make sure you're asking them to smoke outside. Provide them with an ashtray that they'll be able to dispose of their cigarettes safely, and it can be cool so that nothing happens where you catch anything outside on fire. If you have people or yourself that smoke and you're one of those that you smoke indoors, make sure you're not sleepy. Make sure you're smoking while you're awake. Make sure you don't take your cigarettes to bed. And please don't smoke while on oxygen or have family members that smoke while on oxygen. Oxygen just helps catch things on fire more rapidly. It'll be a quicker time, and it's unfortunate because you're not going to be able to help the individual very quick to be able to help put that fire out even because it just burns so fast.
It's a very sobering thought during what we think of as a fun and happy season. But we do have to be cognizant of some of those things.
Exactly.
Is there anything else related to these holidays that we should be aware of, or did we touch on everything?
I think we pretty much hit it out of the park today. I think we'll be doing good, and if anybody needs any more information, we've got it on our website.
Thank you, Ken, for joining me. Holidays are a wonderful time of the year for sharing with family and friends, but just be careful and don't become a statistic. For more fire safety tips, as Ken mentioned, you can visit the State Fire Marshal's website at com.ohio.gov/fire.